Hi everyone, this is Minty Foxu and welcome back to my channel. The video today is going to be quite personal for me and it's going to explain a few things about one, I dyed my hair. You can see it's lime green now, and I also have extensions in that I also dyed lime green, so I mean now I have long lime green hair, and there's actually a reason for why I dyed it this color. But I'll get to that in a minute. So as you've probably noticed, I've been a little bit absent or falling behind on like Instagram and YouTube and some other stuff. And you might have also noticed that I often say that I'm sick a lot. And I am sick a lot, but there's a reason for it. So I basically have a secret that I haven't really opened up to anyone online about. It's something I usually keep very personal and to myself, and only like a few people in my personal life actually know, because it's a sensitive subject for me, and I usually don't really like talking about it. But I didn't really plan this video, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna say it, because this whole subject makes me feel uncomfortable. That's why I never told anyone on Instagram or online or social media at all. So I'll just get right to it. So basically I dyed my hair lime green because it's Lyme Disease Awareness Month. Yes, May is Lyme Disease Awareness Month, and so the awareness color for Lyme disease is lime green because the disease is called Lyme disease. So it kind of makes sense. The reason why that matters to me is because I have chronic Lyme disease, and I've had it since I was 9 years old. Most of you probably don't know what chronic Lyme disease is, or even what Lyme disease is, and it's super complex and hard to explain. So I'm just gonna kind of do a short briefing in this video. I've had chronic Lyme disease since I was 9 years old. Basically, you get Lyme disease when you are bitten by a tick that carries the infection. Most of the time it's deer ticks, but sometimes other kinds of ticks can carry Lyme disease as well. But it's not only Lyme disease, they can also carry other infections as well, like babesiosis, Bartonella, ehrlichiosis, mycoplasma, a lot of other different infections. Some are bacterial, some are parasitic. Lyme disease actually was discovered around the 80s. Not many people knew much about it. It hasn't been recognized for very long, and there's no cure for it, for the chronic kind, you could say. Sorry. If you get bitten and you somehow know that you got bit by a tick and you happen to get something called a bullseye rash, which only 20 to 30% of people actually get, where there's a lot of misinformation on Lyme disease. A lot of it, they believed, they thought it was something that you could cure. They thought it was something that you could cure with 2 weeks of antibiotics, and sometimes it is if you have very acute and you've caught it early. Lyme disease is all about if you catch it early, and that's the hardest part, is catching it early. Because a lot of people, they don't get a bullseye rash, which is basically a bullseye target rash near the site of where you're bit. The other problem of why it's hard to catch early is the symptoms. Lyme disease mimics a bunch of other diseases, and so it can look like pretty much anything. If you first get bit, you'll most likely think you have like the flu. You'll have like flu symptoms, and then you'll have like joint pain or something like that. But not everybody has the same symptoms, and not everybody has the same reactions. Some people, if they get it, they know because they get it so acute at first that they'll get like meningitis in the brain. They go to the hospital, and when they do like biopsies on the brain, they find like Lyme disease in the spinal cord, and then that's when they caught it early. It sucks, but they're lucky. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the world. It's not just in North America. They have it in Europe. They have it in Asia. They have it in Australia. They have it in South America. There's 300 different strains, and the tests that they do for this disease don't pick up all of the strains. Not only do they not pick up all of the strains, it's not even that accurate. It's only like 30% accurate because they're testing for antibodies. But if you've been sick for, let's say, a long time or something, and your immune system suppressed or whatever, or like there's multiple reasons it might not even show up on your test, so you'll get false negatives. And that's when it's really scary. I'm gonna tell you my story, a short summary of my story, which has been very similar to many other people who suffered. This is gonna be very hard for me. It took me a lot of time to think it over whether I should come out about this or not, and I don't want to come off like I'm asking for attention. I don't want to come off like I'm asking for money, because I'm not. No matter how much money you give me to treat this, there's no 100% guarantee that I'm gonna get better, so I don't ask for money to treat my Lyme anymore. I do Patreon and I do Instagram and stuff because I need money just to like live normally, just like food and stuff, because I had a job before. I've had a few jobs over my life, but the problem is I could never keep them for very long. Anytime, even though Lyme is like, even though you look okay inside, it's a whole different story. It's just kind of like people with other diseases. They don't always look like they're sick. That's what an invisible illness is, like multiple sclerosis or lupus. People like that, they don't look like they're sick. Even people with cancer, unless like you see the shaved head and stuff, a lot of the time you can't see if they're sick. Anyway, before this, I had gone to college, and I actually had to drop out of college after 1 year because, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna start from the beginning because this is a long story. So basically, when I was 9 years old, I was always a kid who liked the outdoors and shit. In Connecticut, we have tons of forests, and that's where I grew up for a lot of my childhood, even though I'm from England. I grew up a lot in Connecticut, and I went hiking a lot. Just played around in the forest, because, like, I lived in a forest, and we knew about ticks. Our dogs got them all the time. We got them all the time. We didn't think much of it, because we were always told that Lyme disease is only deer ticks give it. Deer ticks are rare. And also that it's a rare disease, and that it's, when you do get it, it's easy to treat. That's what we thought. That's what I was told. So I never worried about it. One day, I was playing outside with my friend, as usual, in the woods, and I was sleeping over her house, I think, and I wake up the next morning, and my leg hurt really, really bad. And the thing is, I had always had a phobia of ticks, because it's just scary to think that there's like a bug that latches onto you. It's kind of like a leech. I'm scared of leeches, and you gotta pull it off. And as a kid, I was just always scared. But when I look down at my leg, I see a tick that had been embedded in my leg, and had been there since overnight. It was small, but it was hard to tell what kind of tick because it was all the way in my leg. I told my friend's mom about it, and we do what we usually do, which is we just handle it ourselves. Like, when my dog gets a tick, we get the tweezers, we get some alcohol, we pull it out, we alcohol it, we're done. Mine tick, because it was in for quite a while, it was a lot harder. We sterilized the tweezers with a flame to heat it up, which we realize now is actually a bad idea, because apparently if you do that, it makes the tick throw up. If you irritate the tick too much, it makes it throw up. The thing is, there's no easy way to get it out of my leg anyway. Like, you couldn't easily grab it. It was just buried in there. And basically, she tried to take it out, and it ended up like coming out in pieces. So at that point, it must have thrown up. And the problem with them throwing up in you is the fact that they throw up what they're carrying as well. But we didn't know that. We didn't think much about it. We were just trying to get it out of my leg. But we couldn't get all of it out of my leg. And we also thought it might be a deer tick. So we're like, okay, we'll go to the doctor. And the doctor can take the rest of it out. And I've always been a kid who hated doctors. I hated needles. I hated everything with it. So I always tried really hard not to go to the doctor. I wasn't that kid who was always trying to be sick to get out of school. I was always the kid who was avoiding it as much as possible because I hated the doctor. I was always like really anxious and scared about it, but we had to go, and I had them scrape the rest of the tick out. I wasn't happy about it, obviously, but we did it. And then we asked, is it a deer tick? Should we worry about Lyme disease? Should you, because you can test the ticks. If you get bit, if you keep the tick, you can send it for testing to see if it does carry anything. But my doctor at the time, he said, oh no, don't worry about it. If Lyme disease is really rare, and just come back if you have like a bullseye rash or something. Like, just don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. And they gave me like antibiotic cream for it, and we left. Then about a week later, the wound in my leg started looking like it was getting infected. It was very red. What I didn't know at the time is I actually had a bullseye rash around it. Usually bullseye rashes don't hurt, to my knowledge, but Mine did, probably because it was really irritated as well. I went back to the doctor again and he said, no, that's not a bullseye, you're fine, your leg just needs like cream or something like that. And we just said, okay, then we believed the doctor, and I just went on my merry way. And then it's not till over the years I start having a lot of issues. I start getting pneumonia a lot. I've always had like asthma and stuff, and I've always been kind of like a sickly child, and that was the problem of why I didn't see it sooner, is because we thought like, oh, it's just like my natural issues, like my natural genetic issues that I get from like my dad or something, because he has like asthma and stuff, and I've always had like kind of a weak immune system, so I thought that's just what it was. I didn't think much about it, but I kept getting a lot of issues. And then it might have been around, I don't know, I had always grown up being told by my parents, like, you know, push through if you're in pain of any kind, you know, or like, oh, just like blow it off, don't make a big deal out of it. So when I started getting weird shooting pains in my body, I would get stabbing pains, like someone was stabbing me, just like random places in my body. I think that's one of the symptoms I remember in the beginning the most, was I was getting random stabbing pains throughout my body, just like it would randomly be here and then over here and then over here and then in my foot and then in my neck, and then I would get really horribly tired, like fatigued, like to the max. Like I would wake up feeling like I had been hit by a truck, and like I had no energy to get up, to roll out of bed, to sit up. Everything felt like a chore, and then I just kept thinking like maybe I'm just lazy. I wouldn't want to get up because it seemed like so much, to the point even breathing became exhausting sometimes, or just like walking up the stairs. And I just kept telling myself this was normal, because I thought like, oh, you know, I just kept trying to give excuses like, oh, it's like school, or oh, everyone must feel this kind of pain, because eventually I dealt with it for so long, it seemed normal to me, and I thought everyone went through this, and I thought it was normal. And then it just kept getting worse and worse, and then I started getting other issues like stomach problems, and then I started having like eye issues. I started passing out randomly, like I would just start fainting. The thing is, even though I'm sick and even though I feel like I have a fever, I have what's called like low grade fevers, because my temperature's normally kind of lower than usual. Normally people's temperature is like 98 Fahrenheit. Mine is usually like 95 or 96 on normal. So when I'm sick, it doesn't raise to like 100 even if I am really sick. When I had pneumonia, the nurse in school kept sending me back to class because my fever wouldn't rise to 100. I think it was around 98 or 99. And yeah, I go to the doctor, and the next day I find out I have pneumonia. And then it was just issue upon issue. I would get horrible headaches. Like, I couldn't think. And this is going to like, then high school, it hit me really hard. That's when it was like impossible. That's when I knew something is wrong, because I would go to the doctors, and the thing is I had to keep calling out of school all the time, and I actually like school. I like learning, but doctors would see it as like, oh, she doesn't want to go to school. Sorry. Around high school time, it got really bad. I was already always having issues with like my absences, because I'd feel sick and then I'd go to the doctor, and they wouldn't be able to figure out what was wrong with me. And then when all my symptoms got really, really bad, like I'd get brain fog, where it's just like everything's blurry and it feels like I'm not really there. I'm so tired, I'm to the point of just like autopilot, and my body is just screaming in pain. And I would force myself to go to school because I don't wanna, I have to. I don't have a choice. I want to go to school. I want to hang out with my friends. In high school, I also went to a private art school in the afternoon, so I would get up at 5 a.m. to go to a school that was an hour away from me, and then I would get out at noon, and then I would go to my art school in the afternoon till about 5 p.m., and then I would get home at like 7. And that was my day every day. And it was really, really hard, but I liked what I was doing. But it was just so frustrating, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. My doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They did all these blood tests and stuff. We did wonder if it was Lyme disease at one point, a few times, because sometimes we would try to like look up stuff to figure out what it was. Lyme disease kept coming up, like the symptoms, like, oh, you have all over body pain, you have fatigue, you have gastrointestinal problems, you have random weight loss, you can't sleep, You get brain fog, you get ringing in your ears, you get issues like with your vision, sometimes you pass out, sometimes you just get all these. Lyme has so many broad symptoms, it's ridiculous. And you never know what you're gonna get that day, or what mixture of shit you're gonna get that day. We start looking for doctors, and then we see this one. We'd gone through doctor, and then eventually I think I was recommended to this other doctor. I was telling her all my issues, and to this point I felt like I was dying. I couldn't function. My whole life was falling apart. I could barely go to school. My grades were failing, even though before this I got like straight A's. It was super frustrating, and I felt like no one believed me because my parents wouldn't take me seriously at the time. They just thought I was tired and it was normal, and that I was being lazy. And I was saying I'm in pain. Like I literally can't get up. When I would try to force myself in the morning to get up, I would end up throwing up everywhere. I would end up puking tons of times, and then I'd have to crawl back into bed. Because the actual effort of me having to get out of bed would cause me to vomit. That's how much pain and effort it took me. And then even if, let's say, I managed to hold out until I got on the school bus, on the way to school, I throw up all over myself on the school bus. Or at school, I would try to run to the bathroom so nobody would know and throw up there because I was embarrassed. And I didn't know what to say. What I don't know what's wrong with me. And I started questioning myself. I'm like, maybe I am just crazy. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, so I ended up seeing a doctor, and I told her all my symptoms, and she looked at me. And she asked me a bunch of questions. She asked my history. Have you ever been bitten by a tick? Did this happen? Did this happen? And she's like, I think you have Lyme disease. And I was like, no, that can't be true. I took tons of blood tests, and they always came back negative. And she said, the tests aren't accurate, and we diagnose you based off your history and based off your clinical symptoms. Because when you've had it for years or for a long time, it's not going to show up on the tests easily, and your symptoms are going to develop differently, and it's different for everyone too. The thing is, I could have a strain that they're not even testing for. I didn't really realize how hard Lyme disease would be. When I got the answer of what I had, I was actually really happy because I'm like, oh my god, now I have a answer to all my questions. Like, you have something and you're sick, but you don't know what it is. You have no name for it. Before that, I had just been told I had chronic pain, most likely from like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, then rheumatoid arthritis, or then it was something else, and it was something else, and it was something else. And they would just send me to pain clinics, and I went to tons of hospitals and tons of doctors. They would just send me to pain clinics and hop me up on painkillers. And even then, the painkillers weren't even enough. They weren't even enough to numb all of the pain or all my issues, because it's not always pain. It's other uncomfortable symptoms too sometimes. Like, there was no, what are you gonna do about my fatigue? I'm like falling asleep in school, even though, or like I can't sleep, or like don't even have the energy to walk up some stairs. And it's like, I'm a teenager. It's not normal. Well, I thought it would be easy too. Like, I heard, okay, well, I know I have Lyme disease. I just need 2 weeks of antibiotics and I'm good, right? And that's not how it works. That's for if you catch it early, like within the month or something. At this point, I had it since I was 9, and then by the time I went to the doctor who diagnosed me, I was like maybe 18. And she said, it's gonna be really hard because these meds are gonna make you feel worse. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, there's something called a Herxheimer reaction, which means that when the bacteria die off, they release endotoxins into your body, and it's basically almost like what happens in chemo, where it's like your medicine makes you feel sicker. And so, yeah, when I took my meds, holy shit, it was like everything I was already feeling times 10. And then it's like, when that happens to you, you don't want to take meds anymore, do you? You're like, if my medicine's gonna make me feel worse, and I'm better off without it. But then you're like, but do I want to be stuck this way? Not only that, Lyme is something that will get progressively worse. It develops into issues like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis. Bacteria is like a spirochete, which is like a corkscrew, and it basically burrows into your tissues, and it burrows into your brain, and it burrows into your organs, and it can invade the immune system. It can create biofilms, which basically is like a protective kind of gooey shell that prevents antibiotics and prevents your own cells from attacking it or seeing it in your body. So it can go dormant. It can basically go to sleep in your body and hide there when your body's kind of like on alert, or like if you're taking antibiotics, it knows when to hide, and then when it feels like it's safe, it will come out of dormancy and attack you. It basically lives the same way as a parasite. It doesn't exactly want to kill you, but it needs to keep you alive to survive, and it basically feeds off of you. It feeds off your nutrition. In my case, it was sucking the life out of me in a way. It was eating a lot of my nutrients, and I lost a lot of weight, and I was like super, super skinny. Even if I ate, it's like I wasn't absorbing any of it. But anyway, so I was doing some treatments with her, and she was a really good doctor. Like, a lot of her stuff did help, but she wasn't an expert in the field. She's just seen some people with it, but my situation was really, really severe. So I ended up trying to find another doctor that specialized in Lyme disease, called an LLMD, or Lyme literate doctor. I eventually did find a really good one, and this is by probably senior year-ish, near the end of my high school life. And at this point, I'm like, my friends are preparing for college. People don't even know I go to the same school anymore. They barely see me. I go to this doctor. Everything I'm telling him, he's like, yep, I've seen tons of patients like you. And even people have come in wheelchairs and crutches and stuff. He tested me, and I actually, not only did I have Lyme disease, but I had co-infections. I had babesiosis, Bartonella, and Ehrlichia. So the reason I was so sick is not only did I have Lyme, but I have 3 other co-infections as well. At this point, I didn't know if I was ever going to get better. You know, I started treatment with him. It was super painful. Did a lot of different stuff. We had to like change up meds a lot, because if you do the same med for too long, it kind of stops working, so you gotta switch it up again. For about 3 years, I did straight treatment. Some people, they get catheters into their heart. They get IV ports put in and stuff. I did 3 years of straight treatment, but I didn't start feeling a little bit better till like the end of my 2nd year or the beginning of my 3rd year. So for 2 straight years, I felt like it was all for naught, like I was gonna die. I honestly felt like I was gonna die. I couldn't function. Anytime I went outside, my immune system was so weak that I would just catch like any bug that was just around. I would get super sick anytime I left my house. So I was pretty much stuck in my room for months on end, just sitting in bed, taking medicine all the time. It was horrible. But I'm gonna speed this up, because even if I try to explain it, it's kind of hard to explain that much in depth about what exactly I experienced, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. After 3 years, then I started feeling a little bit better. But the thing with Lyme is that and even co-infections, it's not curable, because you can only kill so much, but because I've had it for such a long time, it could still be hiding in parts of my body and then reawaken, which is what happened when after I went for treatment. I was considered to be in remission, and I was super happy because it was the first time I actually felt like I could have a life. I felt like I could do stuff, and I wanted to go to college, and that's what I did. So I moved to Hawaii to go to college. When I was in Hawaii, I really enjoyed it. I made lots of friends. I was studying linguistics. I wanted to be an English teacher, and I wanted to teach in Japan and South Korea and Taiwan, because I had been taking Japanese and I had been taking Mandarin, and I've always had a passion for language. I always thought I was gonna focus my career into art, but things, changed. I decided after I kind of survived my ordeal that I wanted to travel, and so I picked linguistics because I knew I could live in other countries and stuff like that. But then after my first semester, symptoms started coming back again, and I was so scared. I started getting actually a symptom I don't think I had before, which was I started getting sharp pains anytime I was walking, to the point it hurt too much to walk. I started getting sharp pains from my foot all the way up into my hips anytime I walked. And then the fatigue came back. I couldn't make it to my classes. I barely passed that semester. I went from a 4.0 GPA to a 3.3. Then, because of money and because of, I didn't think it would be worth taking out more loans to pay for college if I can't even attend my classes, I dropped out of college. I didn't want to, but I didn't have a choice. And I was scared because no one in Hawaii treats Lyme disease. And it's not a very well known or recognized illness here, or even where I'm from. There's a lot of doctors who don't know a lot about it. They'll just say you're fine, or they'll just let you die, as harsh as that sounds. Lots of people from Lyme disease end up dying because we can't get treatment because people don't want to treat us. And a lot of our treatment isn't covered by insurance. We have to pay out of pocket, and a lot of it costs a lot of money, like thousands of dollars. So unless you have thousands of dollars to save your life. So basically, since then, I have been, just like kind of floating around in the world trying to get by. I tried getting a bakery job, and I worked in a bakery for a few months, but then it just got too much, and I kept calling out, and it got to the point it was super embarrassing, and I don't like people knowing about my illness either, so I just ended up quitting because I couldn't continue doing it. And then my friend said, hey, why don't you start an Instagram? It'll give you something to do. I think people would like your style. I was like, I'll give it a try. I wasn't really confident in it, and I didn't know what I would get from it, and I wasn't honestly expecting much from it. It was just something fun to do on the side, maybe make some friends. Nowadays, my Lyme is kind of going back to how it used to be, and actually worse than it used to be. I'm getting a lot of neurological problems. I get neuropathy in my legs and my body. It feels like my body's on fire, and I get tingling and burning in my legs a lot, and in the back of my neck and in my head. I get horrible fatigue. I get horrible body pain where I just can't move and I can't go anywhere, and I've had to be in a wheelchair a couple times, especially when I'm like flying from different destinations. But it's something that is really hard for me to talk about. It's hard for people to understand because there's a lot to the illness. There's still a lot I haven't talked about. It's really unrecognized. It's really the medical community, and a lot of people, they tend to squish it, and they tend to make the patients feel horrible about themselves. And that's why it's important to me that I share my Lyme awareness to my fellow Lymies this month, and I just want to let them know that they have my support. And since I do have a little bit of a presence online now, I just want to share awareness so that you and your loved ones can stay protected from ever having to experience this kind of situation. If you want to know more about Lyme disease, there's a few documentaries on it. I'll put them in the links below. There's a really good documentary called Under Our Skin that talks about what it's like to have Lyme disease, what it is, everything you need to know about it. There's a few other documentaries about Lyme disease. The Monster Inside Me, I think it's one that's coming out. It hasn't come out yet. And then I'm pretty sure there's a French documentary, and there's a bunch of other documentaries about it. But so what I basically wanted to tell you guys is this is me. Even though I look fine a lot of the time, I'm actually in a lot of pain or struggling with a lot of stuff. So sometimes if I end up being late or constantly saying I'm sick, or like it sounds like I'm constantly making excuses, it's because I'm just trying to deal with certain stuff. And I want to thank you guys so much for being so supportive, and that you even like my content and you watch my videos. And I hope you enjoyed this video too. I hope it wasn't too boring, and I hope it wasn't too awkward. It means a lot to me that you're watching this and that you're listening to my story. So if you can, please wear lime green this month. Please support Lyme disease awareness this month. Please spread awareness. I love you, mañas. Have a great day. Minty Foxu, papunches.